Happy New Year's, guys. Triarius Wargaming here, wishing you a happy new year. And with a new year, we've got a new project, which I'm going to be filling you in on this vlog series. Um, we are planning a massive Greek Hoplite army, 600, 700 miniatures, something like that. So, what do I want to talk to you about in this vlog? Okay, first, we got our project background, okay? What's the idea behind this massive Hoplite project? Two, we're going to go over the plan to collect the 600 something miniatures. We're going to go over some tips and references for your own Greek projects, some tips for large projects if you want to plan something like this or not even this big. And then I'll go over this completed section of Hoplites 144 in a little more detail. In the wake of our hugely successful Historicon 2024 game, we're bringing a Greek Carthage game to the next Historicon. So the Greeks of Sicily and the Carthaginians fought many wars, starting at the Battle of Himera in 480 BC. And this kind of led on to centuries of bloody conflict. The battle at Himera, where it's not the one we're going to do, even though it's the one that kind of sets things off, it offers some interesting examples, though. Interestingly, they've actually kind of found the archaeology for the battle, which can be kind of rare for the ancient battles. A lot of them the archaeology is unknown, but this battle does tell us a lot about these conflicts between the Syracusan Greeks in Sicily, and the Carthaginians. Syracuse, of course, was a Corinthian colony in Sicily that kind of outpassed its mother city. And what they found is from these battlefield sites is the massive use of mercenaries. I found this quite interesting. Even from really bizarre, far afield places, using kind of isotopic analysis of the bones, they could determine where the bodies came from. But they found literal, like, mass graves of thousands upon thousands of bodies from the battle. So that was kind of the starting point for my research. What we ended up deciding on, Ranger, myself, and the Mystery Man, is actually the Battle of White Tunis several centuries later. So 310 BC, so that's about a decade after the death of Alexander. And this gentleman on the coin is Agathocles, or however it's pronounced, who was the Syracusan leader, the tyrant of Syracuse. By all accounts, kind of a nasty character. I've been reading up on him, a lot of murdering and tyranny and all that kind of thing. But anyways, he was at war with the Carthaginians and actually ended up blocked up in Syracuse, under siege in Syracuse. So he trained an army of defenders to guard the city while he was away, and then actually took his veteran troops and planned an escape from Syracuse. So you can see the harbor of Syracuse there. That harbor played a role in a number of wars, including an attempted Athenian invasion of Syracuse. But anyways, the Carthaginians had them blockaded in there, both with fleets and armies. So Agathocles decides to take the fight to Carthage, using kind of a cunning ruse. So he actually lays out kind of a diversion with some grain ships, and this actually allows his own fleet to kind of slip out of the harbor, run the blockade, and he actually runs the Greek army over to North Africa, where he successfully lands his troops and basically starts, terrifying the local population, plundering, all that kind of thing. He actually famously burns his ships so that there would be no retreat for the army. It was kind of conquer or die, basically. So this Battle of White Tunis, the Syracusans capture the city of Tunis, and this is kind of the deployment. The Carthaginians have the numbers, but don't have the quality, whereas the Syracusan Greeks, they have a smaller but very high quality army, and they actually win the battle, although the campaign is unsuccessful for them. So, on to the army planning. So, here is basically my rough idea, and in future videos, I'm going to elaborate more on the army planning process. But the idea is to basically collect a Greek army that could be used for any of the Greek conflicts, not just this one. So I've done 144 generic hoplites in December. The plan for January-ish is Thebans, then Spartans, then everything else. And for me, my army standards include now doing baggage and casualties for the armies. And then the goal is sometime around the summer, do some terrain, do some mercenaries, and hopefully start the Carthaginians. And actually, I'm quite ahead of schedule. So I think this plan will be very achievable. Thinking about doing the Battle of White Tunis, I think it could be cool to have for the Greek camp some ships burning on fire. Uh, Even though it wasn't quite at the exact same time, it was still part of the campaign. And then also maybe the city of White Tunis in the background. All right, so some tips for assembling a hoplite army yourself. So the first thing, and I think it's a really common mistake, I mean, I made it myself many years ago, is how to glue the shields onto the miniatures. So you'll notice in this picture, the Greek hoplite shield is not like a Viking shield. It's not held in the center of the shield. The arm passes through something called the antelabi, you can see in the middle, which kind of rests around the elbow, and then the hand grasps the outside. I see a lot of people gluing the hand in the wrong place. So is this like the biggest deal in the grand scheme of things? No, I mean, I think your hoplites will probably still look fine if you glue the shields on wrong. But if you're getting into doing the hoplites, I would just recommend gluing the shields on that way because it shows how the shield was actually used by the hoplite. So it was not used like a Viking shield. So the shield would kind of rest on the shoulder. You can see on these miniatures how I've kind of glued the shields on in the correct way. And the shield will actually like extend back behind the shoulder when it's held like this. And that actually offers like additional protection. It offers kind of a glancing surface um, so that like spear thrusts are kind of directed away, and it provides like additional protection for the back. And also, if it's held out in front, it offers protection for the person next to you, which is described in our sources where hoplites would seek shelter to their neighbor and cause the phalanx to drift to the right. All right, so my second tip is about painting hoplite armor. So one thing that you can do is the armor was often white in color, but you can really go very colorful. So I've got some reference pictures that might help you when you're painting the armor. Painting the white armor can get a little boring at times, if you're just doing tons with the white armor. I would say feel free to get as colorful as you want. So the armor was made out of some kind of like textile material. There's kind of debate about it somewhat if you look into it. But if you look at some of these examples, like this one, there's like that pink or red decoration on the armor. This is a Macedonian picture, but they have purple colored armor. This example, you can see red decorations, painted helmets. These are also Macedonian examples. So I think the Greek army is going to be very colorful, and all these troops are providing their own equipment. So they're going to be very individualistic. So that is, an approach I recommend, being as individualistic as possible with the figures. So all of these pictures are, illustrations of vase paintings. You can see kind of the varieties in the armor, different color patterns, patterns of different decorations on the armor as well. That's something I'm thinking of doing with commanders in the force. It's kind of a bit much for, your regular individual troopers for me, but adding some of these different, details, the stars, the Medusas, something like that, I'm kind of thinking about doing it for some of my heroes, my officers. One of the coolest examples I think of this armor is the Alexander mosaic, which will pop up in a second. But that mosaic really lets you see all the kind of possible detailed colors and images that might have been on this armor. you can see the Medusa and all the different colored patterns and whatnot. All right, so in this next segment, I want to kind of talk about my philosophy for getting lots of miniatures painted. Okay, and this project is going to require hundreds of Greek hoplites to be completed. And then not only that, but I think we might even have like 3,000 miniatures on the table at Historicon in a year, basically, a year and a half. So what is my philosophy for getting these projects done? Well, we're going to have to take a journey into the past, into my days working in forestry. So I actually got my bachelor's of science degree in forestry and wildlife biology. And when I was in college, one of the jobs I had was working for a logging company. And my first 2 weeks working for that company, basically every day I would come home and I would be completely physically destroyed. Okay, and I was a college athlete. I medaled at the national level, but working, running a chainsaw all day was kind of a new experience for me in that way, in the logging way. And every day I would come home, I would grab a beer out of the fridge, I would get in the shower with the beer, take an ice cold shower, and then pass out on the couch. And I was just, too tired to really do anything outside of that after work, and I was kind of miserable. And every day at work, I felt like I was getting like beat up, basically, like beat with a stick. So what I realized, and what kind of my mentors at that company taught me is, you know, you don't want to work harder, but you want to work smarter. Okay. And with logging, as with actually quite a few other things in life, the actual physical process of cutting the tree down, um, you know, as long as you're basically competent, most people are going to be like the same speed actually felling an individual tree. Okay. That's something you're not really going to be able to speed up. The chainsaw, as long as your chainsaw is sharp and you've got a decent chainsaw, they basically all cut roughly the same amount of time. Where you actually gain time is by working more efficiently in the macro scale. Okay, so what does that mean? In forestry, I mean, it means having your chainsaw sharp, well maintained every day, but it's also about your habits of work, right? Are you taking unnecessary steps? Taking the shortest path to the tree is going to be, while it's only a few steps for that tree, if you're walking for 12 hours a day, it actually adds up a tremendous amount. And unlike, for your health, where you want to take as many steps as possible, when you're going to be walking all day anyways, you want to actually really minimize the number of steps because it's still going to be many thousands and thousands of steps, but you don't want to wear yourself out unnecessarily. It's about how you hold the saw. Like, are you holding it close to your body and using the strength of your body to control the saw, or are you using your arms too much, keeping it too far out from your body? Um, it's about how you prep your fuel. Um, it's just all of the little things that actually go around cutting the tree itself. Okay, and that is kind of the approach that I think you need to take to painting. Instead of taking a micro approach, looking at how you paint individual figures, you have to kind of take a macro approach and think about your efficiency as part of the whole process. And I want to go back to that example again of how many steps you take in a day. So, in that forestry context, you actually kind of have to watch yourself and think about, um, am I am I just walking too much? Am I taking too many random steps? And if you're just cutting down one tree, it doesn't really matter at all. But spread that out over the course of a whole day, it actually matters a tremendous amount. So keep that in mind when you're doing these big projects. And I think the first thing to talk about, and you see it in my videos, is the use of the popsicle sticks. On that same note, I want to give you a similar example from my collegiate rowing career. I was a silver medalist at the national level when I was in college. On, rowing a boat, It's not about wailing on the oar and just hammering away at the water, okay? It's all about technique. Um, the drive through the water, okay, obviously you have to have a strong drive. You have to push the boat through the water, but the whole rest of the stroke is just as important, okay? Um, how you get the blade in and out of the water, how you balance the boat, your whole technique through it. I mean, when I go to the gym and I sit down on the rowing machine, I'm like light years faster than people who I sit down next to, regular gym goers, and I'm not even breaking a sweat. I'm just doing my warm up, and I'm like 30 seconds faster than them on my 500 split. And they're killing themselves. They're literally killing themselves, and I'm still in my warm up, and I'm light years faster than them. Why is that? It's not because I'm that much, more in shape than them. It's because my technique is so much more efficient. I get so much more out of each stroke than them. Not just on the drive. I'm never hammering away at the machine like that. But my stroke is so much more efficient. I'm using my body the right way. My stroke is dialed in. I'm way faster than them. So the point is not for me to say how great I am at a few things. My point is that a big part of success in getting big projects done is about the process. It's about the macro kind of level details. The way you execute the project. Because at the end of the day, like I can't put paint on a miniature faster than the average person. I would say I probably put paint on at the same speed. But what I am able to do is kind of set up a process that allows me to be more efficient, and save time with everything that is not putting the paint on the miniature with the brush, if that makes sense. Like, all right, so here we have my setup for assembling the units you're going to see in a minute. And this is where I want to talk about that kind of efficiency factor. So you'll notice the popsicle sticks. See, that's the first level, the first thing in efficiency. So you'll notice the miniatures on the popsicle sticks. I mean, with these hoplites, you're going to have common colors with every single figure: flesh, bronze, and wood. By having the popsicle stick, what you're able to do is apply all that paint without having to pick up and put down the miniatures. So this is kind of like my analogy with the cutting the trees, with rowing the boat. Like, if you're just painting a few figures, does it matter that much? Probably not. But when you have hundreds to do, just that time spent picking the figures up and down makes a big difference. For this project, I'm going with big batches, unlike kind of my Romans that I did before, which I kind of did unit by unit. This project, I'm painting like hundreds of the hoplites and then assembling the units. The big roadblock I'm finding, or not roadblock, but my choke point is probably doing the shields, which I don't think turned out as nice as I would have liked maybe with this particular batch. But it allows you to basically do one popsicle stick and say, okay, everyone on this popsicle stick is having a red tunic. And then the next one, everyone on this popsicle stick is having a blue tunic. And usually I actually do the 12 guys at a time. So I'll do all the bronze on 12, all the flesh on 12, all the brown on 12, etc. But then, so you do a popsicle stick where they all kind of have the same colors. But then once you do many, many popsicle sticks, you can then kind of mix and match to get a lot of diversity and variety in your figures. So we have the first batch of hoplites here, 144 in units of 36, so 4 units of 36, 9 by 4, 9 across, 4 deep. So I wanted to do big, bulky, full fat units with some depth. I did want to try and kind of create a phalanx shield wall sort of effect with the troops. So about 90% of the figures are Victrix plastics drawn from all their different sets. The remaining 10% are some War Games Foundry. It's probably actually a little less than 10%. And then there's one lone Aventine figure who was kind of left over from a Macedonian project I did many years ago. He's kind of hidden in there somewhere. But anyways, you can see I really tried to go with as much kind of diversity of colors as possible, different armor types. I mixed in the unarmored and the armored together. One annoying thing with the unarmored guys is I had to do some conversions to make unarmored guys holding their spears upright. One thing I found is I really love the new Victrix Hoplite set. I think it's amazing. And I think all the figures actually work really well together. This unit is probably the one that is going to have the highest concentration of plastics. The ones that I have coming down the pipeline are going to have a lot more metal mixed in, and that is because at this stage of the project, I wasn't sure how the new Victrix Hoplites and the metals would mix, whether they would or not. My finding is I think they will mix together actually pretty well. But I had some concerns about it, so I didn't, initially I was not planning to mix them, which is why the first batch is mostly plastic. But now we're going to have some mixed together. So the last thing I'll talk about here is this character, the octopus shield guy. So this was a little reference to the Octo boss from Mad Max, Furiosa, which kind of enjoyed the character in the movie. And for whatever reason, when I was painting the hoplites, that guy with the double crested helmet just kind of stood out to me as the Octo boss. So we have the Octo boss hoplite commanding a unit here. Alright guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. What I'm really trying to stick to this year, New Year's resolution perhaps, is really getting 2 videos out per month. One longer one like this, one shorter one. So the next one is going to be an update on my Thebans, some of the conversion work I've been doing. So I'll see you in the next one, and I hope you guys have a great new year. See ya.